The Good Nurse Netflix versus The Good Nurse True Story. Well, Netflix have been at it again. They've created a new movie on the platform that's based on a true story that's centered around a killer that has caused devastation for many families out there. With the likes of Dharma and The Watcher being released, it appears to be a formula that's working for the platform, and as more and more people find the fascination about these true crime stories interesting, I feel they're only going to keep coming. So with the release of this movie, I thought I'd see how much of what we saw was true, and how much was created for the purpose of this movie. So let's get into it and compare the movie to the true story. Here is The Good Nurse Netflix versus The Good Nurse True Story. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. We've seen in the past with shows such as The Watcher and Dharma that creators do like to add their own contribution to the events that occurred when depicting it on screen. And this was the case too with the movie as well. I'm going to break this video down by the main questions that were left following the movie. Are the people depicted in the movie real? In the movie, we saw Charles Cullen was depicted by Eddie Redmayne, and it was uncanny to see how much he resembled the killer that was Charlie Cullen. We saw Jessica Chastain portray the good nurse, which was Amy, who was in fact a real individual that set out to reveal the crimes that Charlie Cullen had been doing whilst as a nurse in several hospitals. The two detectives that we saw in the movie, Detective Danny Baldwin and Tim Bran, were the two homicide investigators who were present when Charles Cullen revealed the crimes that he'd carried out over the 16-year period, so they were real. We saw two individuals who were patients at Parkfield Hospital who were killed by Charlie Cullen in the movie, and this was Anna Martinez and also a young woman called Kelly. None of the victims out of the 29 that were confirmed had any of those two names, so these two were created for the purpose of the movie. What was Charlie Cullen's motive? Within the movie, when we saw that Cullen was apprehended by the police and in custody, Amy came and visited him. When she asked him why he killed all of the people that he did, he said he did it because he could and because nobody stopped him. Upon his arrest in real life, Cullen didn't give any insight into his motives, which is why it was most likely so vague in the movie. However, Cullen did eventually go on to say that one reason that he did it was so that he could prevent the patients from being coded and to end their suffering. He believed that hospitals dehumanized individuals towards the end, and this was his way of stopping that from happening. Even though he did also kill people that were set to recover from why they were in there, so for these instances, the statement didn't ring true. In the movie, we did hear him mention this briefly when he was discussing that his mother died when he was younger, and that he had to go in and see her lying on the table, and he thought that it was dehumanizing the way that she was left laying there. So the show did draw on some truths when they had Eddie speak that line, despite the fact that that situation wasn't true. In real life, Cullen's mother died in a car accident when he was younger, and he mentioned how he was disappointed and upset at the fact that the hospital didn't inform him immediately after she was brought in, and that they cremated her body instead of allowing her to go back to the family. Were the stories about Cullen and his wife true? Within the movie, we heard about Cullen and his wife who had moved 6 hours away, took the children, and believed that he'd poisoned their dogs. In the true story of Charles Cullen, his wife was actually extremely suspicious of her husband's behavior. She believed that he was mentally ill and that he did abuse the dogs that they owned. She mentioned how he used to tamper with people's drinks, would damage his daughter's books, and neglect her for some time. This was met with disagreement from Cullen, but she did eventually go on to get a restraining order against him for herself and the children, along with eventually divorcing him in 1993. So when he was speaking about his wife in the movie, they were not together at that point and had long been divorced. How close were Amy and Charlie? Amy and Charlie were the two main people that we followed in the movie, and we followed the case from the perspective of Amy. Whilst in the movie, they were depicted as being extremely close, where he would go over to her house and had a close relationship with her daughters. This was not actually the case. Amy and Charlie were close and apparently struck an instant connection when they were paired together at work, but that was the extent of their closeness. It was made out like he was helping her due to her heart condition, but this was something that wasn't true either. Even the fear of the insurance was apparently something that was created for the purpose of the movie. So whilst they were close friends at work, their relationship wasn't as close as what we saw on screen. Was Amy the reason Cullen was caught? Within the movie, we saw that Amy grew suspicious of Cullen's behavior and did several things to try and get him to admit what he did so that the police would have evidence. In real life, this was something that did actually occur. However, authorities had been notified previously about Cullen when he worked at previous hospitals in the past, due to further suspicious activities and the death of patients. We saw in the movie that Cullen was fired by the hospital for the incorrect information that he put on his application form when he initially applied for the job. This was something that was true to the real events. However, it was after delving deeper into Cullen's past and seeing that he was linked to some further deaths that occurred with patients at the previous hospitals that he worked at. Amy was the person who alerted the police the final time and raised her fear that he was involved with patients' deaths due to the medication that he was withdrawing and his previous history. In the movie, Amy wore a wire so that the authorities would be able to listen in on their conversation, and this was something that was also true. And just like what we saw, the conversation that they had was enough of a reason to allow them to arrest him based on the suspicion of one murder. So Amy was a strong reason as to why Charles Cullen ended up getting caught by the police and being arrested. What punishment did Cullen receive? As was told to us at the end of the show, we saw that Cullen managed to bargain himself a deal in order to get himself out of the death penalty, and this was by promising to cooperate with the police as they investigate further. Cullen admitted to killing around 40 people throughout his time as a nurse, but he was officially charged with 13 and the attempted killing of 2 others. Over the next year, he admitted to killing a further 9 people and attempting to kill a further 3 more. When he was sentenced in 2006, he was sentenced to 18 consecutive life sentences and would not be eligible for parole until the year 2403, so he'll never be released from prison. And despite claiming to have murdered 40 people, it's suspected that it's way higher than that, in the hundreds. I thought this movie stuck true to the majority of the facts that were out there about the true case. We only saw the crimes at the time of Amy entering his life, so we didn't see everything before that date. Charlie Cullen is an evil individual who it seemed as though in the movie his killings were done by chance, in the sense that he didn't really know who he was killing because it was placed in the storage room, when in reality he did know who he was killing a lot of the time, and the use of lethal injection was something that he had tried to use on patients before, which wasn't in the movie. This movie is another dark addition that sits in the true crime catalogue on Netflix and highlights another type of person who goes down in history as one of the most evil individuals who claimed a countless number of lives. So, there you have it, The Good Nurse Netflix versus The Good Nurse True Story. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this movie? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.